just start with a short experience to give a sense of the kind of thing I want to discuss. This is something that happened to me like maybe 45, 50 years ago when I was a young man and trying to find my way. Hi. And I went to visit this woman who claimed that she had some kind of spiritual being that spoke to her. And she would give advice to people that came according to what this spiritual being told her. So I thought, okay, I heard about it on the radio. Sound like it might be something worthwhile. Had some doubts about it, but I went, and it was a very strong experience. Um, I'm a pretty shy fellow. I was very shy, especially then. And so she was quite surprised. She said, you know, what I'm getting is that you're going to influence people with your voice. You're going to speak. Is that true? You know, she did. I was very quiet, and I didn't know either. But I got out from, speaking with her, and I was very, I had a lot of strong feeling about the whole thing. It was very, something was very significant here. And I had doubts, and I wanted to know if this was something that I should take seriously or not. And just spontaneously, I noticed that above me were these birds just hovering above. And I said, okay, if this is real, I want all those birds to come together and fly towards me. And they did. The second I had that thought, the very moment I was having that thought, all the birds just came flying right towards me. Um, yeah, so that's sort, that was the kind of authentication I was looking for. And of course, I still had my doubts. I mean, maybe I saw them flying towards me and then had the thought, or you know, was this? But nonetheless, I mean, it had a deep meaning for me, and that's the sort of a contiguity of the inner event. Having the thought, the wish that the birds come together, and then the external event, the birds coming together. Those two things together, that coincidence, so to speak, because there's no causal connection that we can see between my mental event and the external event. And so that would seem to be something which has a meaning relationship between the two. Certainly it had meaning for me. And that's what we call synchronicity, when there is this relationship between two events that have some kind of meaning that we see between the two, but doesn't seem to have any causal relationship. And usually that will be an inner event and an external event that we'll be discussing. And just to give credit to the well-known psychiatrist Carl Jung, who used this term synchronicity to describe experiences of this sort, and gave a lot of significance to this sort of experience and defined it and tried to understand it more deeply. So I want to talk about synchronicities, but more broadly, I want to talk about how we find guidance in our lives through our experience, right? Now, some we read books, we listen to other people, we learn from different things, try to gain some wisdom and how to go through our lives. But sometimes there is an experience that takes place that seems to be giving us some kind of direction. And I want to see about how we how we go about using our experience in this way. And in doing so, I want to look into a certain story in the Bible. Actually, this is a class that I gave a few weeks ago to my neighbors here in Israel regarding the Torah portion that we were reading, regarding the story of the selection of a wife for Isaac, the son of Abraham. by his servant Eliezer. And what I did was I looked into the details of the Torah portion and tried to find out of that what I call 12 tips on how we can use our experience in guiding our life. So, Batya said I should introduce myself. Don't want to say a lot about myself, but my background is particularly in philosophy. That's been the love of my life, and studied for many years. And that's sort of transformed an interest in Kabbalah, the esoteric wisdom within Judaism. And that is really the main focus of my life and my expertise. And so I look into the Bible, to the Torah, and I try to see this kind of inner meaning, this way in which the Torah speaks to me. And, I've been blessed that, God has opened up certain things that indeed have spoken to me very deeply. So I want to share some of my insights regarding this particular Torah portion. I'm going to share some notes that I created, and including the Torah portion, which I'll read a few verses from, and then we'll go into detail.
Aryeh,
what is that okay, Batya?
Mention your book.
What?
Mention your book.
Mention my book. Okay, I'll mention my book. Okay. You can see it, giving the essential teaching of the Kabbalah. And as I'll mention, I hope as we go along, the essential teaching of the Kabbalah is just that we should be givers and not takers from life, but we should always be looking to see how we can serve the needs of others. And indeed, for those of us who have the appropriate theology, we can serve God. But the idea is the focus is not that I am important, but that the other is significant. And that's, I think, the essence of wisdom and the essence of the teaching of Judaism in general, I think. Okay.
Aryeh, before you really start, first of all, I want to say bless you for this lecture. I'm very happy that Batya invited you. But I want to apologize beforehand that I would have to leave in the middle.
Okay. Just 1 second. I lost my hat.
It'll be recorded. Anyone who can't stay the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I welcome you all, and I'm sure it's no mere coincidence that we're all here together, listening and experiencing this talk. And I invite you to share your thoughts and your experiences, obviously briefly because of our limited time, but that's part of what we want to do here, is really to open up the space so that you can acquire for yourselves this kind of skill of learning from your experience. So let me share the document.
Oh, I'll make you 1 second. I'll make you host.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think no, not yet. Share screen. Let's try it again. Here we go. Right. Okay. Well, this is sort of the introduction that I wrote, and I can about you share this document with you if you want to give it to others to read at their convenience. So the idea I mentioned of receiving guidance directly from our experience. Viktor Frankl, to mention that important name, talked about the idea that we should find the meaning of the moment at any given moment of our lives. And that's the sort of thing that we're talking about here. And I, of course, come from a religious perspective, and it's important to me that Frankl noted that the religious dimension is the source of the noetic or meaning dimension. What's that?
No, that's just the computer. Uh-oh.
The voice is garbled. I'm not hearing what you're saying.
It's nothing.
Oh, okay. Okay. In any event, I was just saying that Frankl mentioned that the religious dimension is the source of the meaning dimension, and so that the meanings, that the guidance that we're receiving, there are those who say that the universe is guiding us, or that our inner selves are guiding us, or that, if you will, God is guiding us. And to quote a Jewish source here, I brought the Ramban, the Rahmanides. They wrote about the importance of seeing miracles in our lives in every moment, because from in learning the Bible stories, we see these great miracles that took place. And from that, we recognize that there are really miracles in every moment. And that's the sort of thing that I want us to be looking at, and see how there's something taking place which is not according to our usual understanding of the world, our natural understanding, that we call that a miracle, if you like. Um, so how do we go about doing that? As I said, we were looking at this story, and I invite you to consider certain moments that you may have had, synchronicities, how you went about doing that, how that came to you, what was that, what was the quality of that experience. And I'll be talking about these 12 different tips on how we use these experiences, and you have to see how you would incorporate that for yourselves. And I brought here a definition of synchronicity, my definition. A synchronicity is the experience of two or more events that are apparently causally unrelated and that are observed to occur together in a manner meaningful to the observer. Okay? So if that's clear, any question about synchronicity that anyone wants to clarify that before we go on?
Uh, is there
Yes.
any subtle distinction or fine line, or is there any guiding principle for someone to know how to differentiate between synchronicity and superstition?
And superstition.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, by superstition, I'm going to understand, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that it appears to me that there's meaning there, but
Yeah.
there really is that if I can understand you correctly?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really what we want to see, how we go about judging the authenticity of our experience. That's exactly the idea, and that's a subtle thing, and it requires refining of our personality, of our spiritual character. And as we do that more and more, I think we'll be able to look carefully and consider the authenticity. Although, of course, we may never have absolute certainty, although often there is definitely a feeling of certainty. Okay. But as I say, actually, in my last comment, is that we need to keep thinking, keep considering, keep questioning, and I mean, your question is an excellent one. How do we know that this is the real thing? That's that's really a skill that we need to learn, and we can do the best as we can, but we may never really 100% know.
Okay.
Okay, that's my opinion. So let me read this story a little bit, just to give common background here. Go to the end. I brought the story here. We can ignore the Hebrew for on the right side. So the story is in Genesis, and Abraham was old, advanced in days, and the Lord had blessed Abraham with everything. And Abraham said to his servant, the elder of his house, who ruled over all that was his, please place your hand under my thigh. It's a way of making an oath. Right? And I will adjure you by the Lord, the God of the heaven and the God of the earth, he will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose midst I dwell. Right? He lived in Canaan, and he wanted to Eliezer, that's the name of his servant, to go elsewhere. You should go to my land, to my birthplace, to take a wife for my son, for Isaac. And the servant said to him, perhaps the woman will not wish to go after me to this land. Shall I return your son to the land from which you came? Should I take your son to go there instead of the wife to here? And Abraham said to him, beware lest you return my son back there. The Lord God of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke about me and who swore to me, saying, to your seed will I give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. Right? Notice, I'll talk later, there's a guarantee here, right? You're going to have an angel that's going to be guiding you, and you're going to take that a wife from there for my son here. And if the woman will not wish to go after you, you will be absolved of this, my oath, that only do not return my son back there. And the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and he swore to him concerning this matter. And the servant took 10 camels of his master's camels, and he went. And all the best of his master was in his hand. He had all these gifts. And he arose and he went to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nahor, the place where Abraham was born. And he made the camels kneel outside the city, beside the well of water, at eventide, it was the end of the day, at the time the maidens go out to draw water. And he said, it was a prayer, right? O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, please cause to happen to me today, and perform loving kindness with my master Abraham. He's asking for a synchronicity, right? Please cause to happen to me. And behold, the word, by the way, in Hebrew also means a chance. Hakrena means cause a chance, so to speak, coincidence. Behold, I am standing by the water fountain, and the daughters of the people of the city are coming out to draw water. And it will be that the maiden, okay, so the test, the maiden to whom I will say, lower your pitcher, and I will drink, and she will say, drink, and I will also water your camels. Her have you designated for your servant, for Isaac, and through her may I know that you perform loving kindness with my master. Okay, this is sort of like my test about the birds, right? He's making a test. He wants to know this is the woman. Okay, I'll just read a few more verses. And now he had not yet finished speaking, and behold, Rebekah came out, who had been born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, and her pitcher was on her shoulder. Now the maiden was very comely appearance, a virgin, and had been intimate with her, and she went down to the fountain. She filled her pitcher and went up, and the servant ran toward her, and he said, please, let me sip a little water from your pitcher. And she said, drink, my lord. And she hastened and lowered her pitcher to her hand. She gave to him to drink. And she finished giving him to drink. She said, I will also draw for your camels until they have finished drinking. And she hastened, and she emptied her pitcher into the trough, and she ran again to the well to draw water, and she drew for all his camels. And the man was astonished at her, standing silent, waiting to know whether the Lord had caused his way to prosper or not. Okay, up to here I'll read for now. Okay, that's the story. And now we'll take it one verse at a time. Okay, so the first thing, of course, we want to note is that there is this synchronicity, this relationship, this apparent coincidence, a meaningful coincidence between different events. So it says he had not yet finished speaking, and Rebecca came out. Just as I said before, as I was thinking about the birds, here they were coming towards me. That very same moment, it happened. And he said, I had not yet finished speaking thus in my heart. And behold, Rebecca came out. So I want to point out, so this requires awareness of what is in our heart, right? We have to have that we call today, mindfulness, and that skill of looking within and attempting to be very precise and clear about what is happening with me. And it may be moving fast. So if I want to catch, exactly the coincidence, I have to be paying attention clearly. This happens, particularly perhaps in perhaps in higher states of consciousness for meditation. I'm not selling them, but if drugs or whatever way we may be in these special states where we are so closely aware of our inner experience and how that is relating to the outside world. So that kind of clarity, which may be a non-conceptual, it may be just a feeling, an image that is flashing by. You have to be awake to that. And I also say, a therapist also, while focusing on the client and the client's world, also has to be aware of, the therapist's inner world, which is in the background as well. There may be this kind of synchronicity uh, between what the therapist is experiencing with himself and what they may see in the client, and that may be a very big meaning cue that a therapist can pick up on. Okay, so that's my first thing. This kind of careful inner observation. And once again, I invite anyone to jump in if they have a thought or comment, want to share something. Now, the second thing is that we need to have a certain kind of trust, a certain kind of faith. We need to believe that we indeed will be guided. Okay, so we have that, so that we have to, accept that that can happen and believe that that will happen. If we are awake at that, we have to believe that there are miracles in every moment. There is a meaning in every moment, and that we can find that. And here in our story, as I pointed out, Abraham said to the servant, that God will send his angel before you. You will receive some providence, in this mission that I am giving you, and you can trust in that. And then we need to have trust in ourselves. I believe that be open to this, and then we allow that to take place, or we may be trusting a certain authority. In this case, with Abraham, maybe our therapist or someone else who is guiding us, telling us that this guidance is available in our experience, or simply faith in God, that God is with us and is guiding us. And if we listen carefully, we can pick up a message here and we can find the meaning. So my second tip, if you will, is trust and belief that we will indeed be guided. And thirdly, we need to have some commitment to follow this guidance. And I think the word responsibility is a word, Bacha, that you like to emphasize a great deal, and I think that's maybe a key word here. That there's going to be a certain meaning, which is going to give us a certain responsibility, a certain mission, a certain direction which we are intended indeed to follow. So we have to have that commitment. And here in our story, we see that the servant had to swear, right? He made an oath that he was going to follow through. And that was Abraham's way of making sure that he indeed did have that commitment. Okay. So we don't have to make an oath necessarily, but we do have to maybe give certain clarity with ourselves that we're looking for this guidance and we're interested in getting the guidance, not just it's a nice exercise, but because something that we want to take seriously, that we see as important, and that we do want to follow through with, indeed. Yeah. The fourth thing, pray. We see in the story that the servant prayed, right? He asked God to cause to happen that he will be able to have a coincidence, a meaningful coincidence here that will indeed give him this guidance. Now, I don't know how each of you relate to prayer, to theology as in general, but the clarity about what we truly want is the point here. Then we and experience wanting it. That is really prayer. That's what prayer is about, right? Just that kind of clarity, what is truly important, what you truly want, and then to allow ourselves to truly want it, that in itself constitutes prayer. And that requires, again, focus, concentration, something that we need to consciously do and not just, let it happen, but, take the time to make that clarity that that's what we want. In my story, I very strongly wanted to receive some confirmation, and so I had in mind birds should come together, and that was my prayer, if you will. Yeah, I just want to say, well, regarding knowing what we truly want, I know in particular, perhaps as we get along in life, get older, and we think about the day of our death, we come to that, and we want to know if I have truly succeeded in life. How will I know if I have truly succeeded in life? I have to know what it is that I really want from life, really, what direction I really want to go. And I want to know at the end of my life that I have indeed worked to go towards in that direction. And that should be perhaps one way in which we can contemplate about what it is that we truly want. Okay, moving along. And number 5, and this is really, I think, very critical here, to relinquish control. It's no good if I feel if I'm making things happen. The great synchronicities that, I have had in my life, and that I realized that the miracles were happening. But those times when I left my day-to-day world and stepped out, was open to adventure and whatever will come along. And that requires a little bit of courage and to let that go. And when we do that, and if we truly do that, I believe that the miracles are there, before us, and we just have to, to recognize them. And we see in the story again that the servant didn't ask God, to give him a way to find the wife, or anything like that. He just asked God to give him some kind of sign, and without, his trying to, say, should I go to this matchmaker, or, how do I, do I need to give this kind of gifts? How can I make it happen? No, to allow it to happen and to be prepared to be surprised. That is a key thing. Does anyone want to share perhaps some experience that they had that relates to any of these particular kinds of qualities that are referring to an experience. If you've had these experiences, have you also seen this, adventurous quality or prayer? Anyone would like to share? Okay. Okay.
I can share something. I'm very used to keep an open ear or a third eye or a third ear for synchronicities always in life. As you said, there are always miracles every moment, but we have to be open to them. So I can just tell a small story that not long ago I visited Aryeh and her husband, and all of a sudden David, her husband, said something about the circumcision of the heart. And I didn't even know that comes from the Bible or from Judaism, but I answered to him, hey, how strange, once I wrote a poem called Circumcision of the Heart. So I will come back to Haifa, I will find it on my computer and I will translate it for you. But when I came to Haifa, I didn't find it on my computer. And just one day after, I get a mail from a very good friend of mine. Hey, Dida, I'm sending you a poem you sent me about 5 or 10 years ago called The Circumcision of the Heart, Brit HaMilah Shel Halev. So I had it.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I translated it immediately and I sent it to David and Taria. And the next day, in some other spiritual community, people were asking if anybody has a poem that he wrote, would you be able to send it to us? So I immediately sent this, and then it was immediately published. It was so strange.
Wow. That's a great story.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, yes, I love it. Love it. Yeah, and this is of course a significant thing, for you, I'm sure. It was meaningful and that's so important. The strength of emotion. Yeah, Carl Jung emphasized that the synchronicities that he found usually with a strong affect. It was when there was that kind of significance was given to the issue, whatever it may have been. That was something which often, uh, gave rise to having the synchronicity. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Dina, and let's see what else we have here. So you mentioned, and there's another synchronicity. This kind of thing happens in this kind of class. Thank you, Dita, because the next thing is circumcising your heart.
Oh, really? Wow, that's another synchronicity.
Purify
Wow.
your heart. Have humility. Okay. Circumcising your heart, basically means the idea of annulling the ego, by putting the ego aside and in that way, having a heart which is pure, and which is, again, as I talked about, the idea of being devoted to others and not making myself important. And here we see that in the story, the servant is always referred to as the servant, and then referred to by his name throughout the whole story. We know the oral tradition that the servant is named Eliezer, but his name does not appear in the story. He's referred to always as the servant, and that is to give us the idea that he was always operating out of total devotion and total humility. He's not making himself important, even though, according to the story, it may be that he was interested in maybe that his daughter should be the one to marry Abraham's son, and marry Isaac, and he had that in mind, but he put it aside, and that was a way of, if you will, circumcising his heart. having this humility, which is another way of saying also self-transcendence, easily, which is a key word, of course, in logotherapy. The idea again of making the other more important, transcending your own small ego, going up to a higher, larger self, and that way transcending yourself is a way of working in a way which I think has this authenticity, and that's regarding the question that was asked in the beginning: how do we know that this meaning that comes through is truly authentic? Well, one of the key things is that we are putting aside all our personal, self-interests, our, desires, for all kinds of, as we say, lowly, wants and needs that we may have, and connecting with our higher self. And when we do that, and as we develop spiritually more and more, and have this quality of purity of heart, then I think we can have more and more reliance on the kind of meanings that we will perceive, which connects to my next idea also, is connecting to our values, right? The things that we truly value. And as I mentioned when Bache asked me to show my book, I think the highest value we see is universal, right? The golden rule: love your fellow as yourself. And I have another page where I have how the golden rule is stated in all the different religions of the world, which I received from my Professor Houston Smith, who was one of the world's greatest experts on comparative religion. And when he was moving from the university where I knew him at MIT to another university, so he gave me a lot of his library. And in one of the books, I found a page which had this list of the golden rule in every religion. So the idea of being there for the other, of loving, truly loving the other, it's not just a matter of giving or physical giving, but being able to let go of what is precious, and making that sort of what is your main path in life, connecting to that value and all the values that may be related to that, I think is a key in being able to, again, recognize the authentic wisdom and guidance that we may receive from our experience. And we see in the story that, the test that the servant had for choosing wife was that she would be someone who would be ready to give him to drink. And not only that, but would offer to also give water to camels. Camels drink a lot of water, right? We saw in the beginning that he had a lot of camels there. And this is work. You got to go down to the well, bring it, and water, and fill up the water trough again and again. And she was willing to do the work for a stranger, because this was an opportunity to give. We go through life and thinking, what's in it for me? How can I, that person over there, maybe he can give me this, or decide, always what's in it for me? What's in it for me? But if we switch that, turn it just the other, how can I serve you? How can I serve? That's a different mindset altogether. And then we look for opportunities where we can serve, right? We see a hitchhiker on the side of the road, assuming that it's safe, right? Well, I have a car. I can do it, if I have something that I can give to another that I see that they need it, that's an opportunity. That's not a burden that we want to look for. And that's the kind of person that the servant was looking for as a wife, to follow, to marry Abraham's son, Abraham being the person who was known for his loving attitude towards everyone, his giving, his loving kindness. That is his special quality that he had, that he was like a genius in that quality, which formed the basis not only for the Jewish people, for we see for other peoples as well, and also for the children of Ishmael that are so connected to hosting other people and giving to others that come into their home. This quality of opening your home, wanting to give to others, and everything like that is a quality that came from Abraham, and that would be the quality that we'd be looking for a wife for Abraham's son, and that's why the servant made that test in particular. Yeah, okay, that's number 8. Number 9, act with urgency. In Hebrew, it's called zrizut. We see, that right away when the servant was given his task, he got up early. He's going off to do what he's been asked to do. When it comes to Aram Naharaim, he goes right down. I mean, he's not, let's, first relax a little bit, get a little something to eat. No, first thing, he wants to complete his mission. Right? Always that's the first thing, to go use your energy and to be relaxed, but be energetic, and to go directly, not to be distracted by your needs and wants that you may have, but do it, right away. And again, so my simple story, a short story that I gave, I could have said, well, when I get home, I have to think about this and consider, whether or not this was a real thing. No, I mean, in that moment, when I left the woman to get the advice, right then, I needed to know, is this for real or not? So the idea, if it's important, then go for it. Make that important. Don't be distracted by other things that may come along. That's another key, I think, to being able to use these synchronicities that come up and to be guided from our experience. And similarly, the idea of acting with devotion. When the servant, I didn't read this verse, but when the servant went later to Rebecca's home, they offered to give him to eat, but before he would even eat anything, even then, no, first he has to speak about, the idea of taking Rebecca as a wife for Isaac. And so, again, the food was not what's important, right? What's important was devotion to the task. And we have to be willing to put aside all those other concerns that we may have, and to make sacrifices, if need be, in order to seek out guidance. Right? We need to go somewhere. I once, had a situation where, again, it's not a very significant experience that I had, where I had to go. I thought I had to go through the jungle, to get to where you have to go. So sometimes you have to fight and put out a little energy and put aside other needs, and to be totally devoted to the idea that you want to receive this guidance, and to, again, follow through with that. That's the idea of devotion. And then also the idea of taking note of the time and the place. Here right now, I'm speaking to you what I think is a very significant place here in Israel, not far from Jerusalem, and in fact in the Judean hills, the place where Abraham walked along this path. And I'm speaking to you at a time when we're at war, and which a war which seems to be as clearly as any biblical story a fight of good against evil. And it's a very significant time and place, and we need to be aware of the historical process or our particular place in time and our physical location. What meaning might that have, and how may I connect that to the particular experience that I'm having here? So in our story, we saw that it took place by a well of water, water always symbolizing a wisdom and drawing from the depths of the water, or of course the water coming down from the heavens. Well, and the idea that it was stated here, particularly that it was the time, the even time between the day and the night, between the revealed and the hidden, that magical time at the end of the day when indeed we're all more open to finding this kind of meaning and wisdom. And so that's mentioned here, particularly in the story of Torah, and it's not usually just a coincidence that the Bible mentions particular things of that sort. Is it because we want to take note of the meaning that has? And so also we are invited to take a look at the time and place we find ourselves. And then lastly, I just want to say that it's very crucial that we don't just take the first meaning that comes to us and assume that that's that. But we have to look carefully. We see in the story that the man, the servant, was astonished. He stood silent. He wanted to see whether or not this was for real. And he had to give it further thought. Sometimes synchronicities can be very misleading. It can be a temptation that we're supposed to avoid, and not an invitation to go in that direction, but a warning not to go in that direction. We have to be clear, what is the message? And that requires, again, that we look within and we see, what is going on in terms of my desires. Am I connecting to my higher self, my lower self, right and left, whatever, however you may want to, analyze it or interpret it, but we need to give it a considerable thought and to be careful about making a quick interpretation. We need to reflect a little bit. We should listen to what comes immediately towards us, absolutely, but not necessarily to run to that place, but to consider whether or not we're being told yes, or we told it watch out. That's something that we be very, very, very careful about. And I just want to say lastly that I have done had some different cases. So as a logotherapist, that hasn't been my major occupation, but I have done that, and I've used these kinds of qualities of experiences, kind of using the synchronicity within the therapy beforehand to pray, to think, of what I want for my client and how I feel about it, and to be aware of that during the session. And, all the different, qualities that I mentioned here in terms of the devotion, the values, and so on. That's, I think, something that as therapists, and it needs to be, kept in mind. And I can hope that only that you found this talk meaningful. And Bache asked me to use an hour, and the hour is just about up. And I hope that you'll find ways to actually use this, and Abacha, I can send you
Yeah,
this
take
document.
down. Yeah, please send it to me and take down the share screen so we can see each other.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. And I wanted to say, I want to give you as much time as I could, not interrupt, but when you talked about commitment, so Frankl uses the word commitment, and he talks about the will that comes out of the depth of the person's personality. Then when there's a real will to meaning, then the commitment comes out of the depth of the personality. So that puts together two of your points about the will and what do you want, and your commitment goes together.
Right, very nice. Okay, good. Okay, so I wish you
So
all the
then
best.
maybe let's just take just 1 or 2 minutes in case somebody
Sure.
has something else. I don't want you to feel anyone to feel rushed. You don't
I'm
have
here.
time to. So so let's just take 1 or 2 minutes if anybody else has anything they want to say about what they've Aryeh presented. Yeah, John.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. A lot of what you shared really resonated with me. As I was receiving insights all throughout, and a couple of points that stood out for me was, especially was the emotional component, where there has to be emotion, feeling, and the example you cited with the song. And then you followed forth with the heart, circumscribing, or the heart?
Circumcision of the heart.
Circumcision of the heart, excuse me.
Yeah.
And it also prompted me to think regarding the heaviness of the heart and the importance of purity, because if my heart is heavy, can I really tune in to what God is telling me, what the true meaning is in that particular moment of a synchronicity? And so I often wondered, in terms of superstition, synchronicity, and serendipity, I would think, well, synchronicity perhaps is more random, where serendipity for me is more like God kind of putting things in specifically for me, or so to speak. But thank you.
Okay, that's very nice. But the heaviness of the heart, I think that would be related to the idea of relinquishing control. We have the heavy, if we just let go and let it be, let it come out, I think that takes away some of that heaviness. Okay, thank you for sharing.
Timur, you had something to say? Thank you, John.
I just want to thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was really, really amazing. It shows the depth of your knowledge, and at the same time easy to follow and very inspirational. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Something that stuck out to me that I found quite interesting, and it just kind of comes up with questions, because the servant, I'm not sure if he was Hebrew or not, but when he prays, he's praying to the God of his master, not necessarily to, his own God or whatever deity, he saw as divine, and it could play into that astonishment of like, holy crap, it's actually happened. I prayed to this other guy's God, and then this weird thing happened. It definitely could add layers to that. Taking pause, kind of in the moment of awe, in that silence, to reflect not only on, what just happened, but his orientation to ultimate meaning at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
I wondered how we can get the book, where we can get the book, giving.
Yeah, well, okay, I can send a link to where it can be ordered. I mean, it can be ordered on Amazon.
Susie, you're in Israel now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think you could get it at the bookstores. No, Aryeh?
I don't know how much are in the bookstores, but there's also, I speak about my Rebbe. I'm a student, a disciple of Rabbi Ashlag, and my particular Rebbe is disciple of his son, and at where he has his study hall is a place where you can also order the book. They have copies, and they can send it out. But I'm not sure how much, or my publisher has supplied the bookstores or not. I don't know.
You can send me all that information, and I'll send it to everybody.
Okay,
Thanks.
happy
Okay,
to.
great.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If there's no one else who wants to say something just right now, just before I have to go out, I have another example when you were talking about that you have to discern when you see something which is synchronized, whether it's a warning or is it something that tells you to go forward. I'll say it very shortly. I had a court case which was absolutely against my personality. It was for me the hardest thing as a test for my personality, but it had to be done. And when it came to just one day before I had to give a decision whether I come to witness or that I let the lawyers arrange it between themselves, which of course that's what the judge wanted because they just want to shorten everything. I was so miserable to take that decision. I didn't know what to do because people warned me that the opposite lawyer will tear me to pieces, and it was so frightening. So I went out of my house to think, just to think, because I was so miserable to take that decision. And all of a sudden, in my misery, comes someone who I know very well. She has been with me during the doctorate, but she has written a book, The Healing Power of Testimony.
Oh, wow.
And the minute she came, I understood the message immediately. And she knew my story, so I told her, and she said to me, yes, go tomorrow and test and give a testimony.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
incredible.
great. Yes.
John, just one more.
Yeah, thank
John
you
wants to
very
say
much,
something,
and bye-bye.
Yeah, then we'll finish with that. John.
Just a quick question. In the Kabbalah, gematria, right? The science of sacred numbers, or so to speak. Does the synchronicity tie into that at all?
Well, the short answer is yes. And in general, biblical interpretation is always sort of a form of synchronicity, if you will. Okay, and there's all different kinds of layers of meanings that are there. The gematria, the number and the numerical value of the letters and words is considered, very, very deep level of meaning, and the connections that are found between different ideas according to the numbers often can be extremely enlightening and inspiring. And so that connection, of course, is not a causal connection, right? There are meaning connections that are found. And in general, when you're looking, in meaning in the Bible, so it involves